Imagine an education system where every student has a personal tutor who understands their unique learning style, knows exactly what they're ready to learn next, and has infinite patience. A system where curiosity drives learning rather than standardized tests, where knowledge is acquired precisely when it's needed rather than years in advance just in case, and where teachers are freed from grading piles of paperwork to instead mentor, inspire, and guide young minds. This isn't a distant fantasy. It's the future being shaped today through the convergence of artificial intelligence, groundbreaking pedagogical research, and a fundamental rethinking of what education should accomplish in our rapidly changing world. The conversation between Freakonomics co-author Steve Levitt and Google's chief learning technologist Ben Gomes represents a pivotal moment in our understanding of how education must evolve. Their discussion, while brief, touches upon tectonic shifts that are already reshaping learning environments from preschool through postgraduate education. When Levitt admits, almost sheepishly, that the current educational model forces him to teach complicated concepts primarily to generate grade distributions rather than to foster genuine understanding, he's highlighting a fundamental flaw in the architecture of modern education, one that resonates with educators, students, and parents worldwide. This confession isn't merely an academic self-critique. It's a damning indictment of a system that has prioritized sorting and ranking students over actually equipping them with meaningful knowledge and skills. The good news is that we're standing at the precipice of what may be education's greatest transformation since the invention of the printing press, driven by artificial intelligence, new understanding of how learning actually works, and a growing recognition that our industrialized, one-size-fits-all approach to education is fundamentally mismatched with the needs of the 21st century. To fully appreciate the significance of this moment, we need to understand how we arrived at our current educational model. The foundations of modern mass education were laid during the Industrial Revolution, when the primary goal was to prepare students for factory work, emphasizing punctuality, obedience, and the ability to perform standardized tasks. As former Google CEO Ben Gomes reflects from his own educational experience in India, most systems worldwide still operate on this standardized institutional model, where one-size-fits-all content and grading were the norm. The system was designed for efficiency of delivery rather than effectiveness of learning. And despite surface-level changes, this industrial paradigm continues to dominate educational institutions worldwide. The problem, as Levitt observes, is that for hundreds of years, we've layered little changes on top of what already existed, rather than fundamentally rethinking the system from first principles. The result is an educational accumulation, layer upon layer of reforms and adjustments that have obscured the original purpose of education, which Levitt identifies as creating a new generation of people who are well-adjusted and curious and excited about the world. The digital revolution initially promised to transform education, but often merely digitized traditional methods rather than reinventing them. As one educator in the search results wisely notes, just like when we saw classrooms get packed with expensive laptops and smartboards that didn't serve an integrated pedagogical purpose, AI can also become an expensive classroom distraction. This pattern of applying new technologies to old models is what Harvard professor Clayton Christensen called cramming innovation, forcing new tools to conform to existing systems rather than allowing them to unleash transformative change. We installed computers in classrooms, but largely used them as fancy typewriters or encyclopedias. We connected schools to the internet, but often used it as a faster way to deliver the same content. What makes the current moment different is that artificial intelligence, properly implemented, has the potential to finally break this pattern by enabling truly personalized learning pathways, automating administrative tasks that consume teacher time, and providing unprecedented insights into how learning actually occurs. At the heart of this transformation is the shift from what Levitt calls just-in-case learning to just-in-time learning. Our current system operates on the just-in-case principle. We force students to memorize thousands of facts and formulas, learn complex mathematical procedures, and internalize historical dates, just in case they might need this knowledge someday in the future. As Levitt rightly points out, in a world in which you do not know what you'll be doing 5 years from now or 20 years from now, and a world in which so much knowledge is now at our fingertips, cramming your head full of facts and formulas is not the answer to managing the future. This isn't to say that knowledge doesn't matter, but rather that the purpose of education needs to shift from information accumulation to skill development, specifically the skill of learning itself. The goal becomes, as one commenter on Gomes' post observes, equipping students with the ability plus skills to learn on the fly, combined with a deep intrinsic motivation to be naturally curious. This shift represents a fundamental reorientation from education as content delivery to education as capacity building.
The implications of this shift are profound. When we stop seeing education as the transfer of a fixed body of knowledge and start viewing it as the development of learning capacity, the entire architecture of schooling must change. Assessment moves from testing memorized facts to evaluating problem-solving abilities. Teaching moves from lecturing to coaching, and curriculum moves from standardized sequences to personalized pathways. This is where artificial intelligence transitions from being a fancy gadget to becoming a transformative tool. AI-powered systems can now provide what Gomes describes as bespoke teaching to kids at the level they are, and being able to react to what they know and don't know. And so letting them skip the stuff they already know, letting them learn twice, essentially. Mastery learning. The research behind mastery learning demonstrates that when students are allowed to learn at their pace and must demonstrate mastery before advancing, achievement gaps narrow and overall performance improves significantly. Traditional classrooms with their single pace and fixed deadlines make mastery learning practically impossible to implement, but AI-tutored systems can make it the default approach. Google's work on LearnLM, an AI model specifically fine-tuned for learning applications, represents the cutting edge of this educational transformation. As Gomes explains, while human tutors have proven exceptionally effective at improving learning outcomes, they remain scarce and expensive resources. AI tutors can potentially scale this effective tutoring relationship to every student, but they must overcome what Gomes identifies as the syntophantic tendency of large language models to agree with users even when they're wrong. LearnLM is being specifically engineered to avoid this pitfall, incorporating what researchers understand about effective pedagogical relationships, challenging students, providing constructive feedback, and fostering growth through productive struggle. This development work highlights a crucial insight. Educational AI isn't just about having accurate information, but about understanding how learning actually occurs. The most effective AI tutors will need to combine comprehensive knowledge with pedagogical sophistication and psychological insight.
The potential impact of AI tutors on educational equity cannot be overstated. As Levitt passionately argues, if I ran the California Department of Education, my thought would be, how do I get an AI tutor in every kid's ear? Because if you told me suddenly I had a grant for, $17 billion that would put a full-time tutor for every kid, I would take it in a second. How is there not a stampede to get kids equipped with those tools? This enthusiasm is grounded in solid research. The famous 2 Sigma studies by educational psychologist Benjamin Bloom found that students who received one-on-one tutoring performed 2 standard deviations better than those who learned through conventional group instruction. Since then, decades of research have confirmed that personalized tutoring represents the most effective educational intervention ever studied.
but until now, it has been economically impossible to scale. AI tutoring systems potentially offer a path to democratize this most effective form of education, providing every student with what Gomes calls a process of interacting with AI or AI providing other tools that help students reach those fundamental ideas in any of these disciplines. Of course, the implementation of AI in education faces significant challenges beyond the technical hurdles. As one respondent to Gomes' post wisely cautions, while AI can democratize access to knowledge, how do we ensure it also helps unbias the learning process rather than reinforcing existing inequities or biases? AI systems trained on existing human knowledge can inadvertently perpetuate the biases present in their training data. If not carefully designed and monitored, AI tutors could potentially reinforce societal biases around gender, race, and class, or could default to teaching from predominantly Western cultural perspectives. The solution requires intentional effort, diverse development teams, careful auditing for bias patterns, and inclusive design processes that actively seek to identify and eliminate discriminatory tendencies. This is not a trivial challenge, but it's essential for creating AI educational tools that genuinely serve all learners rather than simply automating existing inequities. Another critical challenge lies in what educational researchers call the last mile problem, the technological potential and classroom reality. As one educator observes, just like the digital, blended, or flipped classroom revolution, it can be tempting to say everything not digital or AI is a draconian factory approach. Just like when we saw classrooms get packed with expensive laptops and smartboards that didn't serve an integrated pedagogical purpose, AI can also become an expensive classroom distraction. Without proper teacher training, curricular integration, and pedagogical reconsideration, AI tools risk becoming just another expensive gadget that fails to transform learning. Successful implementation will require what the same commentator identifies as thoughtful, teacher-led professional development, PLCs or professional learning communities, transformation-oriented leadership, and home-to-school communication. Technology alone cannot fix educational problems. It must be part of a holistic reconsideration of teaching and learning practices.
This brings us to perhaps the most important element in the educational transformation equation, the evolving role of teachers. In Levitt's experimental school model, technology handles the delivery of core content, freeing teachers to become cheerleaders and guides, people who are helping the kids understand who they are and who they become, and trying to get rid of obstacles that are keeping kids from doing that. This vision recognizes that while AI may surpass human capabilities in knowledge delivery and assessment, teachers remain irreplaceable in their ability to inspire, mentor, coach, and build relationships. The most effective educational environments of the future will likely be hybrid ones that leverage AI's scalability for personalized knowledge building while reserving precious human interaction for the relational and inspirational dimensions of learning that technology cannot replicate. The importance of this human element is underscored by Gomes' reflection on his own educational experience. I remember I had a history teacher in school, very inspirational. Was a Jesuit priest, and he would set up history as like, here's a situation. Here are the parties. What do you think is going to happen? There's no way for us to actually know that, but the discussion kept us engaged in a way that I'd never been engaged with history before. This kind of inspirational teaching, what educational researchers call pedagogical capacity, cannot be automated. The future of education isn't about replacing teachers with algorithms, but about leveraging technology to amplify human teachers' most valuable contributions while offloading the tasks that technology handles better. We're already seeing pioneering institutions implement these principles at scale. Arizona State University's Prep Academy, in partnership with Steve Levitt, has established the Levitt Lab, an innovative high school that embodies many of these future-oriented educational principles. The school's instructional model includes 4 key components that illustrate how these theoretical concepts translate into practice. First, the core delivers personalized interactive learning through technology to develop mastery of fundamental principles. Second, wonder sessions use entertaining active demonstrations of mysterious phenomena to ignite students' desire to learn. Third, IDEs, or in-depth explorations, are student-led productions that allow learners to exhibit deep understanding across topics. Finally, Seminar facilitates Socratic discussions of difficult societal issues to teach students to develop and respectfully defend their viewpoints. This balanced approach combines technological personalization with human inspiration in a way that addresses both the efficiency and the joy of learning.
What's particularly significant about this model is its explicit recognition that developing students' curiosity and critical thinking requires different pedagogical approaches than building foundational knowledge. The separation of the core from wonder sessions acknowledges that while AI may excel at delivering personalized knowledge building, sparking curiosity often requires surprising, engaging experiences that challenge assumptions and provoke questions. This balanced approach represents a more sophisticated understanding of learning than either traditional models or purely technology-driven alternatives. It recognizes that education must address both the cognitive and the affective dimensions of learning, both knowledge acquisition and curiosity cultivation. Beyond specific school models, the very definition of educational success is being rethought. As one commentator notes, there's an important distinction between education and learning. Learning is expanding one's understanding of the world. Education is a system whose stated objective is learning. But the means by which it achieves this objective is often mired by the equally strong economic incentive to treat all students the same, to force students to embrace subject matter they may not enjoy, and to assess student skills in some standardized way. This distinction highlights that many of our current educational challenges stem from conflating the system with its purpose. When we focus on learning rather than education, we're forced to ask different questions. Not how do we improve test scores, but how do we expand understanding? Not how do we deliver content, but how do we foster curiosity? This shift in perspective is essential for meaningful educational transformation. The transformation of education will also require rethinking our approach to assessment. As Levitt candidly admits, the current system of grades and evaluations often drives pedagogical decisions that work against genuine learning. I need to somehow give some kids A's and some kids B's, and the easiest way to do that is to teach them things that don't matter in ways that are somewhat hard and overcomplicated so that I have a way to separate them out. This honest acknowledgement highlights how assessment drives instruction, often in counterproductive ways. When learning is reduced to alphanumeric grades, teachers feel pressure to include content not for its intrinsic importance, but for its utility in generating grade distributions. The future of assessment likely involves the shift toward more authentic evaluation methods, portfolios, projects, demonstrations, and other forms of assessment that measure application rather than mere recall, that value process alongside product, and that provide meaningful feedback for improvement rather than simply ranking students against each other. The timing of this educational transformation is particularly urgent, given the rapidly changing nature of work and knowledge. As Gomes observes, in the past, people studied something that was going to hold them for all their lives. And now, technology is changing much more rapidly, so there's a need to adapt to technology. The half-life of skills is shrinking dramatically. What students learn in their first year of college may be obsolete by graduation in fast-moving fields like computer science or biotechnology. In this context, the most valuable skill becomes the ability to learn quickly and effectively, what educational researchers call metacognition, or learning how to learn. Future-focused education must prioritize developing this capacity above transmitting any particular body of knowledge. This need for adaptability is reflected in the growing emphasis on what are often called durable skills. Critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, communication, and metacognition, that remain valuable even as specific technical skills become obsolete. As one analysis of future education trends notes, there's increasing recognition of the importance of a well-rounded education that develops these transferable capacities. The most innovative educational models are beginning to explicitly prioritize these skills alongside or even above traditional academic content. This represents a significant shift from what historian of education Ellen Condolfi-Lageman has called the content fetish in traditional schooling, the obsession with covering specific information at the expense of developing broader intellectual capacities.
The transformation of education will also need to address the growing disconnect between formal schooling and the ways people naturally learn outside educational institutions. Gomes reflects on this when he observes that products like YouTube, Search, and Gemini succeed because people come to those tools because they want to, not because they have to. This distinction between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation is crucial for understanding why so much formal education fails to spark genuine learning. Cognitive science clearly demonstrates that intrinsically motivated learning is deeper, more durable, and more transferable than learning driven by external rewards like grades or threats of punishment. The most effective educational environments of the future will need to harness, or at least not suppress, the natural curiosity that drives self-directed learning. This alignment with natural learning processes is what makes the potential of AI in education so compelling. Well-designed AI tutors can adapt to individual interests, providing examples and problems tailored to each student's passions, rather than using one-size-fits-all content. They can adjust their pacing to maintain what educational psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi called the flow state, that perfect balance between challenge and skill that makes learning engaging and rewarding. They can provide immediate feedback that helps students understand misconceptions before they become entrenched. And they can do all this while collecting data that helps teachers, students, and parents understand learning processes with unprecedented clarity. Of course, significant obstacles stand between this educational future and our current reality. The system that Levitt identifies as resistant to change includes not just educational institutions, but societal expectations, university admissions processes, regulatory frameworks, and deeply ingrained cultural assumptions about what constitutes real education. Transforming education requires changing all these interconnected elements simultaneously, a challenge of breathtaking complexity. This systemic inertia explains why educational innovation often happens at the margins, in charter schools, private institutions, or experimental programs like the Levitt Lab, rather than through transformation of mainstream public education. Despite these challenges, the economic imperative for educational transformation is becoming increasingly clear. Research from Georgetown University's Center on Education and the Workforce finds that many middle-skilled jobs requiring only a certificate or associate's degree pay over $53,000 annually early in careers, challenging the college-for-all mindset that has dominated educational policy for decades. At the same time, traditional higher education faces its own disruption as student loan debt surpasses $1.7 trillion nationwide, and alternative pathways like the American College of Education demonstrate that 85% of students can graduate debt-free with different models. The convergence of these pressures, economic, technological, and social, creates what innovation theorist Clayton Christensen would call a perfect storm for disruptive change in education. Looking further into the future, the ultimate potential of AI in education may go far beyond even the sophisticated tutoring systems being developed today. As AI systems become better at understanding individual learning patterns, they may help us answer fundamental questions about how people learn that have eluded educational researchers for centuries.
They might identify optimal sequences for introducing concepts, discover previously unrecognized barriers to understanding in various domains, or develop entirely new methods for explaining difficult ideas. The long-term promise is not just personalized pacing within existing curricula, but personalized pathways through knowledge itself, sequences and connections tailored to how each individual's mind best builds understanding. This exciting future must be approached with appropriate caution, however. As we integrate AI more deeply into education, we must guard against what sociologist Sherry Turkle has called technological inversion, the tendency to redefine human values in terms of what technology can measure rather than what actually matters. The most important educational outcomes, curiosity, wisdom, ethical reasoning, compassion, may resist quantification and algorithmic optimization. The future of education must balance technological capability with human wisdom, using AI to enhance rather than replace the essential human dimensions of teaching and learning.
In the final analysis, the conversation between Gomes and Levitt points toward a future that is both exciting and uncertain, a future in which education is simultaneously more efficient and more human, more personalized and more communal, more focused on durable skills and more adaptable to changing circumstances. Getting there will require navigating significant technical, ethical, and implementation challenges, but the potential reward is enormous. An educational system that truly serves all learners, that ignites curiosity rather than extinguishing it, that develops capacity rather than merely transmitting content, and that prepares students not just for specific jobs, but for meaningful lives in a rapidly changing world. As Levitt reflects on his own teaching, in my own classroom, I'm not excited at all. I feel like I'm part of the past in my own classroom. But here, trying to create this, it really feels like being part of the future. This sentiment captures both the disappointment with education's current state and the hopefulness about its future direction. The work of reimagining education is not just about improving test scores or developing workforce skills, as important as those are, but about reclaiming what Levitt identifies as the fundamental objective: creating generations of people who are well-adjusted and curious and excited about the world. In the end, the future of education isn't about technology at all. It's about humanity and about building systems that help each person develop their unique capacities for understanding, creating, and contributing to the world. The tools may change, but this essential purpose remains.